What if the person begging for help wasn't confused, wasn't anxious, wasn't hallucinating, but was the only one in the room telling the truth? Lily Whitaker came to Mercy Medical Center for a routine surgery. 48 hours, then home. That was the plan. But every night after midnight in a quiet hospital room overlooking the rain-soaked streets of Charleston, she woke up screaming that her pillow was burning her alive. Doctors checked the chart. Nurses changed the sheets. Psych called it trauma. But one night, nurse noticed what everyone else ignored. The marks on Lily's neck, the missing pillows, and the same shadow passing her door before every scream. This story is about pain, power, revenge, and the cost of not listening. Stay until the end because the truth was stitched inside the one thing meant to comfort her. Like this video and comment where you're watching from. 48 hours before anyone thought to cut open the pillow, Lily Whitaker was not a mystery. She was not a case whispered about at the nurse's station. She was not the girl on the 5th floor who screamed after midnight and pointed at the same white hospital pillow as if it had teeth. She was just a young woman with abdominal pain, a low fever, and one hand pressed against her right side while her mother filled out forms at the front desk of Mercy Point Medical Center. The hospital stood near the water in Charleston, South Carolina, a clean glass building that looked almost peaceful from the outside. Palmetto trees bent in the damp wind. Ambulance lights washed red across the entrance canopy. Somewhere beyond the parking structure, the harbor moved in the dark breathing salt into the city. Inside, everything smelled like disinfectant, warm plastic, and coffee that had been sitting too long on a burner. Lily sat in a wheelchair near admissions with a blanket over her knees, trying not to look as uncomfortable as she felt. She was 22, pale from pain with dark blonde hair pulled into a loose knot, and eyes that kept drifting toward the automatic doors each time they opened. Her mother, Caroline Whitaker, noticed. He said he was coming, Caroline said softly. I know. He was on base when I called. He's retired, Mom. Caroline gave her the look she always gave when Lily said something technically correct but emotionally useless. Retired from the Navy does not mean retired from being your father. Lily almost smiled, but the pain caught her before the smile reached her face. She inhaled slowly through her nose and gripped the armrest of the wheelchair. Caroline immediately crouched in front of her. Lily, I'm okay. You are not okay. I'm appendix okay. That's a category. People survive it all the time. Caroline brushed a loose strand of hair from her daughter's forehead, her hand lingering a second too long. You joke when you're scared. I joke when I'm bored. You are not bored. No, Lily admitted. I am not bored. The automatic doors opened again. This time the air seemed to change. A man in a charcoal coat stepped inside with rain on his shoulders and military posture in every line of his body. Retired Admiral Grant Whitaker did not walk fast, but people moved out of his way as if speed had nothing to do with authority. He had silver hair, a square jaw, and the kind of quiet presence that made strangers lower their voices without knowing why. He saw Lily and the command left his face. For a second he was only her father. Hey, kid. Lily gave him a tired look. Kid, I'm 22. You are in a wheelchair with a blanket on your knees. I'm allowed. He knelt beside her, one hand covering hers. His palm was warm and rough. The same hand that had held microphones, shaken presidents' hands, and signed orders that moved ships across oceans now rested carefully over her fingers, as if she were something fragile and irreplaceable. How bad? He asked. Not my finest hour. That is not an answer. It hurts enough that I'm not arguing with doctors. That bad, that bad. A nurse came over with a clipboard and an expression that shifted as soon as she recognized him. Admiral Whitaker Grant is fine. The nurse nodded too quickly. Yes, sir. The surgical team is ready to evaluate her. We'll get her upstairs as soon as possible. Lily looked up at her father. See, you make everyone nervous. I have that effect. You enjoy it, only when it helps. It's an appendix. Then we'll remove it and go home. He said it like a mission brief. Clear objective, limited risk, expected success. For the next several hours, that was exactly what it seemed to be. The scans confirmed appendicitis. The surgeon, Dr. Malcolm Reed spoke with the smooth calm of a man who had performed the procedure so many times it had become muscle memory. Straightforward laparoscopic appendectomy, he said, standing in Lily's room with his tablet tucked beneath one arm. We caught it before rupture. No signs of widespread infection. She's young, healthy, and in good shape. I expect a smooth recovery. Caroline exhaled like she had been holding her breath since the parking lot. Grant asked 3 questions about anesthesia infection risk and discharge timing. Not because he doubted the doctor, but because command had trained him to leave no corner dark. Dr. Reed answered all of them. If everything looks as expected, she could be home within 48 hours. Lily lifted one hand from the bed. I vote for that plan. Grant looked at her. You do not get a vote until after surgery. I'm the patient. You are also under the influence of pain medication. Then I vote twice. Doctor. Reed smiled. Caroline laughed under her breath. Even Grant allowed the corner of his mouth to move. The room felt safe then. Annoying clinical. Too bright, too cold, but safe. Mercy Point had that effect during the day. Sunlight came through the windows on the 5th floor and made the harbor shimmer in the distance. Nurses moved in and out with practiced kindness. Machines beeped at steady intervals. Someone down the hall had flowers delivered. Someone else had a newborn grandson on video call. Life and fear shared the same hallways, but in daylight, fear was easier to manage. Lily's surgery lasted less than an hour. By late afternoon, she was back in room 512 with 3 small bandages on her abdomen and a plastic cup of ice chips on the bedside table. Dr. Reed came in with good news. No complications, inflamed, not ruptured. We'll keep her tonight. Manage pain, watch for fever. And if tomorrow looks good, we talk discharge. Caroline kissed Lily's forehead. Grant stood at the foot of the bed reading the monitor out of habit. Lily opened one eye. Dad, yes. Stop staring at the numbers. I am not staring. You're absolutely staring. I am observing. You're making the machine self-conscious. Caroline smiled, but Grant did not take his eyes off the monitor until Lily reached blindly for a pillow and threw it weakly in his direction. It landed nowhere near him. He picked it up, fluffed it once, and placed it back behind her head. Terrible aim. I just had surgery. Excuses. Lily closed her eyes. The pillow felt cool against the back of her neck. Clean, ordinary, comforting in the way hospital things tried to be comforting, even when they never quite succeeded. That first night passed without incident. Lily woke twice when nurses came in to check vitals. She complained once about the blood pressure cuff squeezing too hard. She asked for water. She thanked everyone who helped her sit up. By morning, her fever had dropped and her pain was manageable. The nurses liked her. That mattered more than anyone admitted. On busy hospital floors, the patients who screamed, demanded, argued, and pressed the call button every 7 minutes became stories by breakfast. Lily was not one of those. She apologized when she needed help walking to the bathroom. She remembered names. She told the night nurse, a woman named Tessa, that her earrings were pretty even though Lily looked ready to fall asleep mid-sentence. She's sweet, Tessa said at the desk. Poor thing just wants to go home. Dr. Owen Keller, the overnight resident, barely looked up from a chart. Then let's get her there. Owen was 31, running on caffeine stress and the permanent exhaustion of residency. He had kind eyes when he remembered to use them, but Mercy Point had been full for 3 straight days, and kind eyes did not finish discharge summaries. Lily's second day was uneventful. She walked the hallway twice with Caroline hovering near her elbow. Grant took a call by the window, voice low and clipped, still sounding like he expected the Atlantic Fleet to answer him. Lily mouthed to her mother, "He misses ordering people around." Caroline whispered. He never stopped. By evening, Dr. Reed said they would likely discharge her the following morning if her lab stayed normal. Lily texted a friend that she would be home soon. She sent a picture of her hospital socks. She complained about the soup. She slept. The third night, Mercy Point changed around her. Not in any way a patient would notice at first. Hospitals have 2 personalities. Daytime is movement, voices, carts, visitors, trays, phones, questions. Night is different. Night stretches the hallways. It turns every footstep into a decision. It makes machines sound louder and human voices sound farther away. At 2:18 a.m., a linen cart rolled quietly onto the 5th floor. The man pushing it wore gray scrubs with a Mercy Point badge clipped to his chest. His name was Travis Rohr. He was 42, average height, average build, with brown hair cut short, and a face that refused to stay in memory. He had worked at Mercy Point for just over a year. Most staff described him with words that meant they had never truly seen him. Quiet, reliable, no trouble, good with supply rounds. Travis moved down the hallway without hurry. He collected a bag of soiled towels from one room, replaced pillowcases, and another restocked gloves outside the utility closet, and signed the linen sheet with a small, precise signature. At room 512, he paused. Inside, Lily slept on her side, one arm tucked beneath the blanket, her face soft with medication and exhaustion. Travis looked at her through the narrow glass window. His expression did not change. After 3 seconds, he moved on. No one saw him pause. No one had a reason to. By morning, Lily was not ready to go home. Her white blood cell count had bumped higher than expected. Not alarming, Dr. Reed said, but enough to observe. Her temperature had risen slightly overnight. Caroline frowned. Grant asked whether this suggested infection. Not necessarily, Dr. Reed said. Bodies are not machines, Admiral. Sometimes they take an extra day. Grant did not enjoy that answer, but he accepted it. Lily tried to make it easier. One more day of luxury, she said, looking around the room. 5-star sheets, gourmet broth, a view of a parking deck. Caroline squeezed her hand. One more day. Lily nodded, but disappointment settled over her. She had already imagined her own bed, her own shower, the ridiculous plant on her window sill that refused to die. Instead, she watched the discharge plan vanish into another round of vitals and blood draws. That night, the first scream came. It was 2:52 a.m. The 5th floor was quiet enough that the sound seemed to tear through the walls. Tessa, the night nurse, ran first. Doctor. Keller followed from the call room with his scrub top untucked and a stethoscope swinging from one hand. They found Lily out of bed barefoot, one hand gripping the IV pole, the other clamped to the back of her neck. The pillow lay on the floor near the foot of the bed. Lily's face was white. "Something's in it," she said. Tessa reached for her. "Lily, honey, sit down before you pull your line." No, don't put me back there." Dr. Keller stepped around the bed. "Tell me what happened." Lily pointed at the pillow. It moved. Tessa glanced at Keller. He picked up the pillow, squeezed it, turned it over, shook it lightly. A standard hospital pillow, white cotton case, synthetic fill Mercy Point tag stitched on one corner. "Nothing here," he said. Lily shook her head. "I felt it under my neck. Then it burned. Let me see." She lowered her hand. At the base of her skull, just beneath the hairline, there was one small red mark. Keller leaned closer. "Could be irritation. It stung me." "It may have felt like that. You're post-operative. Your sleep-deprived and pain medication can create strange sensations." Lily stared at him. "Medication does not crawl." The room went still for half a second. Tessa softened her voice. "Let's get you back into bed. We'll change the pillowcase." "Okay." "I don't want that pillow. We'll get you another one." "I don't want any pillow." Keller ordered a mild sedative and documented the event as an acute anxiety episode with tactile disturbance. By morning, the words had already begun to attach themselves to Lily. Anxiety, reaction, stress. The staff did not say them cry. Cruelty would have been easier to fight. They said them with tired sympathy. They said them while adjusting IV lines and checking temperature. They said them as if naming the event made it smaller. Lily said very little. She touched the back of her neck throughout breakfast. Caroline noticed the mark. "What is that?" They said irritation. "What do you say?" Lily looked toward the pillow. "I say something touched me." Caroline followed her gaze. "Something I know how it sounds. Tell me anyway." Before Lily could answer, Grant entered with coffee and 2 folded newspapers under one arm. He read both their faces. "What happened?" Lily told him. She tried to say it plainly. No drama, no trembling. She explained the movement, the burn, the pillow on the floor, the mark on her neck. Grant listened without interrupting. When she finished, he looked at the pillow, then at the door. "I'll speak to the doctor." "That's the problem," Lily said. "The doctor already spoke." "Doctor." Reed examined her that morning and found no surgical complication. Dr. Keller mentioned the episode in careful language. Sleep disruption medication affects possible anxiety response. Grant asked whether the mark could be an insect bite. Possible. Reed said unlikely, but possible. We can have environmental services check the room." They checked, they found nothing. That should have helped. It did not. The next night it happened again. 2:47 a.m. Lily woke with a small pressure behind her neck, as if something delicate had shifted beneath the fabric. She held still, trying to convince herself it was a fold in the pillowcase. Then came the sting. Not one sting. 3 tiny hot needles pressing into her skin. She screamed before she could stop herself. When Tessa arrived, Lily was sobbing and furious. "It's the pillow. It's inside the pillow." Tessa took it away immediately and called Dr. Keller. This time there were 3 marks. Keller frowned at them longer than he had the night before. "Could be bites," Tessa said quietly, from what Lily asked. No one answered. The room was cleaned again, sheets changed, mattress checked, vents inspected. A different pillow was brought from another supply closet. Lily refused to lie down. She sat upright until Dawn, arms wrapped around herself, eyes fixed on the new pillow beside her like it was waiting. By day 6, the story of room 512 had spread. Not loudly. Hospitals did not need loud gossip, a look at the desk, a lowered voice by the medication room, a sentence cut short when Caroline appeared. Lily Whitaker had started screaming at night. The Admiral's daughter thought something was in her pillow. Psych was being consulted. Dr. Helen Cross came in that afternoon carrying a yellow legal pad and a voice polished smooth by years of frightened patience. She sat beside Lily, not too close, not too far. "I'm here because the team wants to support you." Lily looked at the legal pad. "Support me or evaluate me." Dr. Cross did not flinch. "Both can be true, that's honest. At least I understand you've had several frightening nights. I've had several painful nights. Tell me about the pain." Lily described it, the movement first, then the sting, then the burning that lasted for hours. She showed Dr. Cross the marks near her neck and shoulder. Dr. Cross examined them gently. "Do hallucinations leave marks?" Lily asked. Dr. Cross looked at her for a moment. "What you are experiencing is real to you." Lily's face closed. "That is not what I asked." Dr. Cross wrote something down. "I am not saying you're making it up. You're saying my brain is. I'm saying stress, surgery, lack of sleep, and medication can create experiences that feel external." Lily turned her head toward the window. Outside, Charleston looked washed clean after rain. Beyond the glass, people drove to dinner, walked dogs, carried umbrellas, lived in a world where pillows were pillows, and pain meant someone looked for a cause. Inside room 512, Lily felt herself being moved from patient to problem. The recommendation came by evening. Short-term anti-anxiety medication, sleep support, continued observation. The official chart used careful terms. The break room used simpler ones. Poor girl, trauma response, fixated on the pillow. Caroline resisted it at first. "She has marks," she told Grant in the hallway. "I know, they keep saying anxiety. I know, you keep saying that." Grant looked through the window at Lily, who was sitting upright in bed with a blanket around her shoulders. "I am trying not to make this worse by throwing rank around in a civilian hospital." Caroline turned on him. "She is your daughter, not a diplomatic incident." His jaw tightened. "I know that too." But he did not know what to do with a threat he could not see. He had spent his life reading radar weather maps, reports, the behavior of men under pressure. He understood engines, chain of command, risks, casualty estimates. He did not understand a white pillow that looked empty in everyone's hands and still made his daughter scream. So he asked for more inspections. He asked for another physician to review the case. He asked if they could move rooms. The room change was denied temporarily because Lily was still under surgical observation and the floor was full. A second physician agreed with the first. Environmental services found no infestation. Psychiatry remained involved. The system moved around Lily like a machine, accepting only the parts that fit. On the 7th night, Lily stopped asking anyone to believe her. She stayed awake until after 2. Her eyes burned. Her body ached from sitting upright. The anti-anxiety medication made her limbs feel heavy, but fear kept dragging her back to consciousness each time her head dipped. At 2:39 a.m., Travis Rohr rolled the linen cart down the hall. The wheels made almost no sound. Lily heard them anyway. She looked toward the door. A shadow paused beyond the glass. Then it passed. She stared at the pillow beside her. It had been placed there by a nurse who told her gently that she needed rest. Lily whispered to the empty room, "I know you're there." Nothing moved. Minutes passed. Her body betrayed her before her mind did. Her chin lowered, her shoulder relaxed. Sleep came not like comfort, but like a hand covering her mouth. Her head touched the pillow. For a while there was only darkness, then something shifted beneath the fabric. Lily's eyes opened. She did not scream at first. She lay frozen, listening to her own breathing, hoping that terror had invented the sensation. A line of fire touched the back of her neck. Then another, then another. She grabbed the side rail and tried to push herself up, but the pain bloomed so fast it stole coordination from her hands. This scream was different. It was not surprise. It was recognition. Down the hall in the medication room, Nurse Nora Callahan was checking a dosage against a patient chart when the sound reached her. She paused with the syringe still in her hand. Nora had been floated to the 5th floor 2 hours earlier because the surgical unit was short-staffed. She was 40 with steady hands, tired eyes, and 11 years of night shifts carved into the way she moved. She knew the difference between a patient startled awake and a patient in true terror. This was true terror. At the nurse's station, someone muttered, "Room 512 again." Another voice answered, "The pillow girl." Nora set the syringe down slowly, deliberately. She looked toward the hallway where Lily Whitaker's scream rose again, raw enough to make the glass tremble. Then Nora turned and ran toward room 512. By the time Nora Callahan reached room 512, Lily Whitaker had stopped screaming and started making a sound that was worse. It was a low, broken gasp pulled from somewhere deep in her chest. The kind of sound a person makes when pain has passed through panic and settled into disbelief. The room was crowded. Tessa stood near the bed with one hand on Lily's shoulder. Dr. Owen Keller was bent forward, examining the back of Lily's neck beneath the harsh wall light. Another nurse hovered near the doorway with a fresh pillowcase folded in her hands, as if clean fabric could solve whatever had happened in that room. Lily sat rigid against the raised head of the bed. Her hair was damp at the temples. Her face looked drained of every color except fear. The pillow was on the floor. Nora noticed that first. Not the monitor, not the IV line, not Dr. Keller's tired expression. The pillow. It lay near the bed rail, half folded where it had landed, white and ordinary and impossible to accuse. "What happened?" Nora asked. Tessa glanced back. Same episode. Nora did not move her eyes from Lily. "I asked what happened." Lily looked at her then, really looked. Her eyes were wet but sharp with anger. "It burned me." Dr. Keller straightened. "There are several raised marks at the base of the neck similar to the previous presentation." "Previous presentation?" Lily repeated. Her voice was horsaro. "That's what we're calling it now." Keller looked away for half a second, just long enough to show he knew the words had landed badly. Nora stepped closer to the bed. "May I look?" Lily hesitated. It was not refusal, it was calculation. The calculation of someone who had already handed the truth to too many people and watched them folded into something smaller. Finally, she turned her head. Nora lifted Lily's hair gently and studied the marks. 3 fresh welts sat just below the hairline, red and slightly swollen. 2 older marks had faded to dull pink near the right shoulder. They were not scratches, they were not pressure marks. They did not look like a rash spreading naturally across skin. They looked placed. Nora said nothing for several seconds. Tessa shifted behind her. We checked the bed again. Nora asked, "When did the burning start?" Lily answered before anyone else could, "After my head touched the pillow." "How long after?" "I don't know, maybe 40 minutes, maybe less." Nora nodded once. "Did you feel it before the burning?" Lily's eyes narrowed not with suspicion now, but attention. "Yes." "What did you feel?" "Movement." Dr. Keller sighed quietly. Nora heard it. She did not look at him. What kind of movement? Lily swallowed, small, like something shifting under the fabric. Not big, not heavy, more like threads moving. The nurse near the door lowered the fresh pillowcase slightly. Nora asked, "When the pillow is removed, what happens to the pain?" The room went still. Lily stared at her. "What? When the pillow is taken away from your neck, does the burning continue the same way or does it change?" Lily blinked. Her mouth opened, then closed. "It drops," she said slowly, "not all the way, but it stops getting worse. The first part stops almost right away. Nora let that sit in the air. Dr. Keller rubbed one hand over his face. Pain response can change once the stimulus is removed, even if the stimulus is psychological. Lily laughed once. It had no humor in it. Of course, Nora finally turned to him. Has anyone preserved one of the pillows after an episode? Keller looked at Tessa. Tessa looked at the floor. They get changed, Tessa said. Housekeeping takes them. Linen service every time, I think so. Nora looked back at the pillow on the floor, not this one. The charge nurse, Marcia Bell, appeared in the doorway. At that moment, her face set in the expression of someone already tired of a problem before hearing its newest detail. What is going on now? Tessa answered quickly. Room 512 had another episode. Marca looked at Lily, then the pillow, then Nora. Why is that still on the floor? Nora said, because I want it bagged. Marca stared at her. Bagged? Yes, this is not a crime scene. Nora kept her voice even. No one knows what it is. Marcia stepped inside. She was in her late 50s, broad-shouldered, controlled with the calm authority of someone who had run night floors through storms. Code blues, staffing shortages, family fights, medication errors, and every kind of human collapse a hospital could hold. She was not easily shaken, and she did not appreciate being challenged in front of patients. Nora stepped into the hall. Lily's hand shot out and caught Nora's wrist. It was not dramatic, it was not strong, but it was desperate. Please, Lily whispered, don't let them take it. Nora looked at Lily's fingers around her wrist. Then she looked at Marca. I'll step out after the pillow is placed in a clear patient belongings bag and labeled with the time. Marcia's face hardened. Dr. Keller cleared his throat. That is not unreasonable. Marcia turned her eyes on him. He looked exhausted, but he did not take it back. Fine, Marca said. Tessa found a bag. Nora put on gloves, picked up the pillow carefully with both hands, and slid it inside without squeezing it. The plastic crinkled loudly in the quiet room. Lily watched every movement. When Nora sealed the bag and wrote the time across the label, Lily closed her eyes. Not relief. Not yet, but something close to the first inch of solid ground. In the hallway, Marca folded her arms. You were floated here 3 hours ago. I know, and you are already collecting pillows as evidence. I'm collecting the object the patient identifies as the source of repeated pain. The patient has a psychiatric consult in her chart. The patient has skin findings on her neck which have been assessed, not explained. Marcia glanced toward room 512, then lowered her voice. Listen carefully. This family is complicated. Administration is already involved. The father has half the state ready to answer his calls. The last thing this floor needs is a nurse creating panic over a pillow. Nora studied her. Who told you administration was involved? Marcia's eyes shifted, only slightly. Nobody had to tell me, it's obvious. No, Nora said, that was specific. Marcia stepped closer. Do your job, monitor her. Chart accurately, call the physician when needed. Do not turn a difficult patient into a conspiracy. Nora did not answer. Marcia took that silence as obedience and walked away. Nora stayed in the hall. Through the narrow glass, she could see Lily sitting upright, refusing the replacement pillow Tessa had brought. Dr. Keller was speaking softly to her. Lily nodded at the right places, but her eyes had gone flat. Nora knew that look. She had seen it in patients who stopped trying to be believed because hope had become another injury. At 4:10 a.m. after the floor quieted, Nora sat at the nurse's station and opened Lily's chart. She read from the beginning, omission, appendectomy, no complications, mild fever, delayed discharge, first episode on night 4, patient reports movement in pillow, 1 red mark, anxiety suspected. Night 5, patient reports burning sensation, 3 raised areas noted, environmental services notified, no insects found. Night 6, patient refuses pillow. Psychiatry consult requested. Night 7, patient reports repeated stinging sensation, sleep disturbance, medication adjusted. Nora stopped at the phrase repeated stinging sensation, then she scrolled back. The marks were always near the neck and upper shoulder. Always after midnight, always after the patient had been lying down, always connected to the pillow. She checked the nursing notes. The language changed slowly over time. At first, staff wrote what Lily said. By the 3rd episode, they wrote around it. Patient states, pillow is moving. Patient remains fixated on pillow. Patient perverates on belief that pillow contains foreign object. Nora leaned back. The words had done what words could do in a hospital. They had shaped the way everyone saw the patient before entering the room. At 4:26, she checked the linen records. Room 512 had used more pillows than any other room on the floor that week. That might have meant nothing. It did not feel like nothing. Near dawn, Nora walked to the utility room and found the linen cart. The bagged pillow from Lily's room was gone. For a moment, she simply stood there. Then she checked the shelf. Nothing. She checked the soiled linen bin. Nothing. She checked the disposal area near the service elevator. Nothing. Tessa found her there. "You okay? Where is the pillow I bagged?" Tessa's face changed. "I thought you took it." "No, I didn't touch it. Who came through after I labeled it?" Tessa thought. "Housekeeping came by, maybe Travis. He does early pulls sometimes. Travis orderly. Linen rounds, quiet guy." Nora looked toward the service elevator. The doors were closed. By morning, the pillow was gone from the building's ordinary memory. No one had signed it out. No one had logged it. No one knew anything. In a place that tracked medication down to the milligram and meal trays by room number, a sealed bag with a labeled pillow had vanished as if it had never existed. Nora finished her shift with that fact moving behind her eyes. She came back the next night with a small black notebook in her scrub pocket. Not hospital paper, not an electronic note. Ink. The first thing she wrote was Lily Whitaker, room 512. The second thing she wrote was pillow removed after episode and disappeared before shift change. She did not show anyone. At 12:14 a.m., Nora entered Lily's room. Lily was awake, sitting with her knees slightly bent beneath the blanket, staring at the television with the sound off. "You're back," Lily said. "So are you. I tried to leave. My labs disagreed." Nora checked the IV line and looked at the monitor. "How is the burning now lower? Still there if I touch it? May I see the marks again?" Lily turned without argument this time. Nora examined the cluster under the light. She did not speak quickly. She did not fill the silence with comfort. She only looked. Lily said, "Everyone thinks I'm losing it." Nora adjusted the blanket around Lily's shoulder. "I don't know what is happening yet. That's not the same as believing me." "No," Nora said. "It's the same as not replacing your experience with my explanation." Lily looked down at her hands. After a moment, she said, "That might be enough for tonight." Nora pulled the chair closer and sat. "Tell me exactly what happens from the moment you put your head down." Lily took a breath. "When I'm sitting up, nothing. If I lean back on the blanket, nothing. But if my neck rests on the pillow, after a while, I feel something tiny. It's hard to explain, like threads tightening or moving. Then the sting starts. The first one is sharp, then more. Then heat spreads under my skin. Do you feel it anywhere else?" "No, neck and shoulders. Does it happen during the day?" "No, never, never. Who comes into your room before it happens?" Lily looked toward the door. "Nurses, sometimes a doctor. Sometimes the linen man." Nora kept her face still. "The linen man, I don't know his name, gray scrubs, quiet. He brings towels sometimes. What time? I don't know, late. I try not to look half the time. I'm usually pretending I'm not scared." Nora wrote it down later. Outside the room. At 1:58 a.m., Travis Rohr stepped off the service elevator with the linen cart. Nora watched from behind the medication room door. He moved with the kind of competence that made people invisible. No wasted motion, no hesitation. He knew which rooms needed towels, which rooms had families sleeping in chairs, which doors squeaked if opened too far. At room 512, he slowed. Not enough for anyone to call it stopping, enough for Nora to write it down. He looked once at the camera above the hallway. Then he continued to the utility closet. At 2:41 a.m., Lily pressed the call button. Nora reached the room before anyone else. Lily was sitting upright, both hands gripping the blanket behind her teeth clenched. "It started," Lily said. Nora looked at the pillow. It was still behind Lily's head, but Lily had pushed herself away from it. Nora did not touch it. "Pain level 7 climbing. Did you feel movement?" "Yes." Nora turned to Tessa, who had arrived behind her. "Call Dr. Keller. Tell him fresh marks are visible before medication." Tessa hesitated. "Nora, now." Dr. Keller arrived in under 5 minutes. He examined the skin. 4 new welts. Small raised. Angry. He looked at Nora. She could see him trying not to reach the conclusion yet, not because he did not care, because conclusions carried consequences. Nora said, "I want the pillow kept in the room tonight." Keller nodded slowly. Agreed. This time, Nora placed the pillow in a clear bag herself and kept it on the chair beside Lily's bed in full view. She stayed in the room for 20 minutes. No one came for it. At 3:18, Dr. Keller was called to another patient. Tessa left for medication rounds. Lily, sedated but awake, watched Nora with heavy eyes. "You're guarding it," Lily murmured. "Yes," from what Nora looked at the bagged pillow. "I don't know," Lily closed her eyes. That's the scariest answer. At 3:42 a.m., Nora stepped out for less than 3 minutes to respond to a fall alarm down the hall. When she returned, the chair was empty. The pillow was gone. Lily was asleep. No one at the desk had seen anyone enter. Nora walked straight to the security station near the elevators and asked to review the camera outside room 512. The guard, a young man named Eli, frowned at his monitor. "That camera's down, since when he clicked through the system. Work order says malfunction reported 4 days ago." 4 days. "Yeah, show me the hallway camera before it." He did. The angle showed the far end of the corridor, not Lily's door. At 3:39, a shape moved past the edge of the frame with a bundle under one arm. Gray scrubs, no face, no badge. Nora did not ask Eli to guess. She already knew what he would say. Too blurry, not enough. Could be anyone. The next night, Nora arrived early. Before clocking in, she walked the 5th-floor corridor as if checking room numbers for a new assignment. When she reached the camera outside room 512, she stopped beneath it and looked up. The small red indicator light was dark. She took out her phone and pretended to read a message while her eyes studied the casing. A piece of black electrical tape covered the light. Neat, small, placed exactly where casual eyes would miss it. Nora reached up and touched the edge of the tape. It lifted slightly. A red blink flashed underneath. Her pulse changed. Until that moment, she had been building a pattern. Now she had intent. That night, she wrote more carefully than before. Camera operational, but indicator concealed with black tape. She added the time. Then she added one sentence she did not want to write. Someone is controlling what can be seen. At 2:06 a.m., Nora found Dr. Keller in the call room, half awake over a paper cup of coffee. She placed the notebook in front of him. He blinked at it. "What is this?" "Read it, Nora. I have 3 admissions and 1 possible bleed. Read it now." Something in her voice made him sit up. He read the first page with irritation. He read the second with concern. By the 4th, his jaw had tightened. By the page about the camera, he stopped breathing through his mouth. He looked up. "You checked this yourself?" "Yes." "The tape?" "Yes." "The missing pillows?" "Yes." He looked back down at the notebook. "This is serious. It has been serious." "No, I mean professionally serious, legally serious. If this is wrong, I answer for it. And if it's right," Nora held his gaze. "Then a patient has been assaulted every night while we called it anxiety." Keller looked toward the hallway. For a moment, he looked younger than he was. "What do you want?" "I want witnesses." "To what?" Nora checked the clock on the wall. 2:11 a.m. Her voice dropped. "I want Lily kept off that pillow. I want the next one preserved before anyone can remove it. And I want Admiral Whitaker here without administration knowing first." Keller stood slowly. "That is going to detonate this place." Nora picked up the notebook. It already detonated. We just kept charting around the blast. She walked out before he could answer. In room 512, Lily was awake again. She was sitting upright, arms around her knees, staring at the pillow beside her. Nora entered and closed the door softly. Lily looked at her face and understood enough to go still. "What did you find?" Nora crossed the room and pulled the pillow away from the bed. "Enough." Lily's eyes filled, but no tears fell, enough for them to believe me. Nora placed the pillow on the bedside table far from Lily's skin, enough for me to stop waiting. Outside the door, the 5th-floor lights hummed. Somewhere down the hall, the linen cartwheels whispered over polished tile. Nora looked at the clock. 2:18 a.m. Then she reached for the phone. Nora reached for the phone because there was no longer enough room inside the hospital's rules for what needed to happen. The receiver felt slick in her hand. Not with sweat exactly, but with the cold pressure of a choice that had crossed the line from concern into accusation. She looked once through the glass at Lily sitting upright in the bed with the pillow on the far side table as if distance alone could make it harmless. Then Nora dialed the number listed under emergency contact. It rang once, twice. A man answered before the third. "This is Whitaker." No sleep in the voice, no confusion, just alertness, hard and immediate. "Admiral Whitaker, this is Nurse Nora Callahan at Mercyont Medical Center. I'm caring for your daughter tonight." Silence sharpened on the other end. "What happened?" "She is alive. She is awake." "But I need you to come to the hospital now. Is she medically unstable?" "No, sir." "Then why are you calling me at 2:00 in the morning?" Nora looked at the pillow. The clean white shape on the table looked almost innocent beneath the low light. "Because I believe someone inside this hospital has been hurting her." This time the silence was different, not disbelief. Impact. When he spoke again, his voice had dropped. "Say that again?" Nora did. Each word felt heavier the second time. "I believe someone inside this hospital has been hurting your daughter. I need you to come quietly. Do not call the front desk. Do not call administration. Do not tell anyone you are coming. Who else knows Dr. Owen Keller? No one else who can stop this before it disappears." A beat passed. "Is Lily safe right now?" "She is safe because I am in the room and she is not touching the pillow." "The pillow?" "Yes, sir." She could hear him breathing once slow through the nose. A man forcing emotion down because action had arrived first. "I'm on my way." The line clicked dead. Nora stood with the receiver still in her hand for half a second before setting it down. Behind her, Lily whispered, "You called him?" Nora turned. Lily's face was pale in the monitor glow. Her eyes moved from Nora to the pillow, then back again. "Yes, he'll come fast. I was counting on that. He'll come angry. I was counting on that too." For the first time that night, something like a smile touched Lily's mouth, but it vanished quickly. Her gaze fixed again on the pillow. "What if there's nothing inside?" Nora crossed to the bed and sat in the chair beside her. "Then I'll answer for it. That's not what I asked." Nora folded her hands together to keep them still. "I know." Lily looked down at her own fingers. They were curled into the blanket so tightly her knuckles had lost color. "If there's nothing inside, then I really am losing my mind." "No." Lily looked up sharp. "Nora, no." Nora said again, quieter. "If there's nothing inside, it means we have more questions. It does not erase the marks on your skin. It does not erase the timing. It does not erase what you felt." Lily swallowed. "You talk like you've had to convince yourself of that before." Nora glanced toward the door. "I've had patients tell the truth badly before, crying confused, angry, sedated, terrified. People decide the delivery is the problem and stop listening to the message." Lily's eyes stayed on her. "And I learned the hard way that pain does not always speak politely." The hallway outside room 512 hummed with night. A cart rolled somewhere far away. A nurse laughed softly at the station, then lowered her voice as if remembering where she was. Rain brushed the window in thin silver lines. Charleston slept beyond the glass, unaware that one room on the 5th floor had begun to tilt toward a truth no one had wanted to touch. Dr. Keller arrived at 2:31. His hair was flattened on one side and his scrub jacket was zipped wrong. He stepped in, saw Lily awake, saw the pillow on the table, saw Nora standing near it, and stopped. "You called him?" Nora nodded. Keller shut the door behind him. "Does administration know?" "No, Marcia, no." He exhaled and looked toward the ceiling for a moment. "I'm going to need a new career." Lily said, "I'm sorry." Keller looked at her and the tired sarcasm left his face. "No, don't do that." She blinked. "Don't apologize for making us look at something we should have looked at days ago." Lily looked away too quickly. Keller stepped closer to Nora and lowered his voice. "What exactly is the plan?" "We keep her away from the pillow. We wait. If Travis comes in, we keep him here. When Admiral Whitaker arrives, we open the pillow in front of witnesses." Keller's jaw tightened. "And if Travis does not come in, then we open it anyway. And if someone tries to stop us," Nora glanced at the trauma shears on the bedside table, "we stop waiting for permission." Lily stared at the shears. The metal caught the light each time the monitor blinked. At 2:38, the floor seemed to grow quieter. It was not silence. Hospitals were never silent. Air moved through vents. Plastic tubing clicked gently against metal rails. Somewhere an IV pump complained and was silenced. But beneath all of it, the hallway outside room 512 seemed to hold its breath. Nora moved closer to the door. Keller stood near the foot of the bed, arms folded, trying to look more certain than he felt. Lily sat upright, blanket pulled around her shoulders, eyes locked on the narrow window. The footsteps came soft, not hurried, not hesitant. The doorknob turned. Travis Rohr entered with a folded pillowcase over one arm. He took 2 steps into the room before his body understood the room had changed. Lily was not asleep. The pillow was not behind her head. Dr. Keller was standing there. Nora was beside the bed, one hand near the trauma shears. For one full second, Travis did not move at all. Then he smiled. It was small, polite, empty. Didn't mean to disturb anyone, just linen rounds. Nora said at 2:39 in the morning, night shift runs differently. Keller's voice came from the foot of the bed. Why this room? Travis looked at him as if surprised by the question. Every room gets service. Nora stepped between Travis and the pillow, set the pillowcase down. His eyes moved to her. What? Set it down. The smile remained, but it no longer fit his face. I have rounds to finish. They can wait, Keller said. Travis's attention shifted to Keller. He seemed to measure him not as a doctor, but as an obstacle. With respect, doctor, my supervisor expects the floor completed before 3. With respect, Keller said, I don't care. Lily made the smallest sound from the bed, not fear exactly, recognition. Travis heard it. His eyes flicked to her. For the first time, she spoke directly to him. You come in every night. He looked at her. I bring linens. You come before it starts. Nora watched his left hand. The fingers had tightened around the folded pillowcase. Travis, she said, how long have you worked at Mercy Point? 14 months. Before that, other jobs. What kind? He gave a quiet laugh. Is this an interview? Yes. I don't answer to nurses. The door opened behind him. A voice filled the room, low and controlled. You can answer to me. Admiral Grant Whitaker stood in the doorway wearing a dark raincoat over a gray shirt, his hair damp, his face carved into stillness. He did not look at Lily first. That took effort. Nora could see it. His eyes stayed on Travis Rohr as if the man were a threat on a radar screen that had finally appeared after days of empty static. Travis turned. The polite expression vanished, not all at once. It retreated from his face like water pulling back before a storm. Whitaker stepped inside and closed the door behind him. What are you doing in my daughter's room at this hour? Travis said nothing. Whitaker looked at the pillowcase over his arm. Answer the question. Travis's mouth moved slightly. It might have been a smile, it might have been pain. You don't remember me. Whitaker studied him. Should I? That question did something to Travis. Nora saw it land behind his eyes deep enough to change the air around him. No, Travis said. Of course not. Lily's voice trembled. Dad Whitaker did not look away from Travis. Who are you, Travis Rohr? The Admiral's face gave no sign of recognition. Travis nodded once, as if confirming something he had already known. My father was Chief Petty Officer Aaron Rohr. The name crossed the room like a match struck in darkness. Whitaker's expression changed very slightly, but enough. Travis saw it. There it is, he said. Whitaker's voice grew quieter. USS Heian, September 12, 2009. Rescue operation off Cape Hatteras. Storm building. Visibility collapsing. 3 men overboard after the line snapped. Keller looked from Travis to Whitaker. Lily looked only at her father. Whitaker said, that was classified under operational review. I read every page I could get. Travis's voice shook once, then hardened. Every redacted report, every inquiry summary, every sentence polished clean by men who did not have to knock on my mother's door. Whitaker took 1 step forward. Your father was a good man. Travis laughed. It was soft and terrible. You don't get to say that. I served with him. You left him in the water. The room went still. Lily's hand covered her mouth. Whitaker's face tightened, not with anger, but with an old grief dragged without warning into light. The storm made continued recovery impossible. Recovery? Travis repeated, not rescue. You changed the word after you gave up. Whitaker's hands flexed at his sides. We had 2 rescue swimmers injured. A helicopter taking damage. A second-line failure. I had to choose whether to lose more men. My father's emergency beacon transmitted for 8 hours after you withdrew. Whitaker closed his eyes for half a second. When he opened them, the command had cracked around the edges. I know, Travis stared at him. The words seemed to surprise him more than denial would have, you know. Yes, and you still went home. Whitaker's voice dropped. I never went home from that. Travis's face twisted. No, you went to promotion boards, ceremonies, speeches. My mother went to a folded flag in a bedroom she couldn't clean out for 3 years. Nora felt Lily shift behind her. Lily's voice was thin. I was 5. Travis looked at her then fully. For the first time since he had entered, he seemed to see her not as an object in a plan, but as a person in a bed. The sight did not soften him enough. I know. Then why, Lily asked. Why me? Travis's grip loosened on the pillowcase. The folded fabric sagged over his forearm because he never had to feel it. Whitaker said, Travis, no. Travis's voice rose for the first time. You don't command me, not here, not anymore. Nora moved slightly closer to Lily. Travis saw it and laughed under his breath. You all keep protecting the wrong person. Keller said, you harmed a patient. I gave him a fraction of what he gave us. You attacked his daughter. I made him listen. Lily flinched. That did what accusation had not. For a moment, Travis looked at her and saw what the sentence meant outside his own head, but revenge had lived in him too long to leave cleanly. Nora reached for the trauma shears. Travis's eyes snapped to her hand. Don't. The word came out too fast. Everyone heard it. Nora lifted the shears. Admiral Whitaker, stand where you can see. Dr. Keller, I need you as medical witness. Lily, keep your hands under the blanket. Travis took one step forward. Keller moved between him and Nora. Stay where you are. Travis stared at Keller, and for a second the room balanced on something sharp. Then Whitaker spoke. Travis. The name was not a command this time. It was an anchor. Travis stopped. Nora picked up the pillow with both hands. It was not heavy. That made it worse. Something so light had carried 10 nights of terror. She set it on the bed tray and turned the seam upward. Lily watched without blinking. Nora slid the lower blade of the shears into the stitching. The first cut sounded small, fabric giving way. The second cut opened the seam. White synthetic fill pushed out in soft clumps. For one breath, there was nothing else. Then a pale thread moved. Keller whispered, Jesus. Nora did not stop. She opened the seam wider. More filling spilled out. Tangled through it were dozens of nearly transparent filaments, thin as fishing lines, slick with moisture, some curled, some stiff, some twitching faintly in the open air. Tiny barbed tips caught the light when they moved. Lily made a sound like she had been struck. She pressed herself back against the headboard, both hands over her mouth. Whitaker stepped toward the bed, then stopped as if his body refused to bring him closer. What is that? He asked. Nora's voice was quiet. Marine stinging material, venomous filaments. They were packed into the inner seam. Keller looked sick. She was lying on that. Yes, every night. Nora looked at Travis. Every night he replaced it. Travis did not deny it. The pillowcase slipped from his arm and fell to the floor. Lily was shaking now hard enough that the monitor leads trembled against her gown. She looked from the open pillow to Keller, then to Nora, then finally to her father. I told you, she said. No one answered fast enough. The silence broke something in her. I told all of you. Whitaker turned toward her. Lily, no. Her voice cracked, but it did not collapse. Every night. I said it was inside the pillow. I said it moved. I said it burned. And everyone kept looking at me like I was disappearing while I was still talking. Keller's face went pale. I'm sorry. Lily looked at him. The apology seemed too small to reach her. Nora stepped close enough for Lily to see her without turning. You were telling the truth. Lily's eyes filled. I know. You know, I'm saying it because this room needs to hear it. Whitaker lowered himself slowly into the chair beside the bed, not because he wanted to sit, but because his legs seemed to have lost the certainty that had carried him through storms and war rooms and funerals. He reached for Lily's hand. She let him take it, his fingers closed around hers as if he were afraid she might vanish. Travis watched them. Something unreadable crossed his face. Not regret, not satisfaction. Something emptied out. Keller moved to the door and opened it. His voice carried down the hall. Security to room 512. Now call Charleston police. Nobody leaves this floor. A nurse appeared at the end of the hallway, then another. Keller repeated it louder. Now Travis did not run. That was what Nora noticed. His body did not even angle toward escape. He stood near the door, hands loose at his sides, staring at the open pillow like a man looking at wreckage he had made, and somehow expected to feel different once he saw it. Nora picked up a clean basin and placed it near the torn pillow without touching the filaments. "Do not let housekeeping near this room," she said to Keller. "Do not let anyone remove anything." Keller nodded already on the phone. Lily whispered, "Is it over?" Nora looked at the pillow, then at Travis, then at Admiral Whitaker holding his daughter's hand with both of his. The part where no one believes you is over. Security arrived in pairs, breathless and confused. They saw Travis first, then the Admiral, then the pillow. One guard reached toward Travis. Travis raised his hands before being asked. The guard said, "Sir, step into the hall." Travis looked at Whitaker. For the first time, his voice sounded tired. "My father died waiting for help." Whitaker's face had gone gray. "I know. I wanted you to wait, too." Lily spoke before her father could. "You made me wait." Travis looked at her. There was no defense left that could survive the way she said it. The guards took him by both arms. He did not resist. As they led him into the hallway, the fifth floor came awake around them. Doors opened. Nurses gathered and were ordered back. Somewhere near the station, Marcia Bell's voice rose sharp with confusion and fear. Nora stayed beside Lily. The open pillow lay on the tray under the light. No longer a comfort, no longer a mystery, no longer something a chart could explain away. It was evidence. It was horror. It was proof. Admiral Grant Whitaker bent his head over his daughter's hand. For the first time since Nora had met him, he looked less like a commander than a man who had arrived too late to a battlefield he did not know he was standing on. Lily looked at the torn seam and the pale threads glistening inside. Her voice was almost gone. "Please get it out of my room." Nora picked up the call button and pressed it for additional staff, but her eyes stayed on the door where Travis had disappeared. "We will," she said. "But first, everyone is going to see exactly what was inside." Everyone did see what was inside. That was the first thing Nora made certain of, not because she wanted the horror repeated. Not because Lily needed one more set of eyes on the thing that had been hidden beneath her head for 10 nights. Nora wanted witnesses because hospitals had a way of cleaning away ugly things before the right people arrived. A blood smear became a housekeeping note. A missing medication became an inventory discrepancy. A screaming patient became anxiety. This pillow was not going to become anything smaller than what it was. The room filled in layers. First came security. 2 men with radios clipped to their shoulders and confusion on their faces. Then Marcia Bell appeared at the doorway, one hand braced against the frame, her eyes moving from Lily to Admiral Whitaker to the torn pillow on the tray. The color left her face. "What is that?" she asked. Nora did not soften it. What Lily said was in the pillow. Marca took one step inside, then stopped as if an invisible line had been drawn across the floor. Lily sat against the raised bed, wrapped in a blanket, her father beside her with both hands around one of hers. She had stopped shaking as violently, but her eyes had gone distant, fixed on the open seam, as if looking away might allow it to become a rumor again. Dr. Keller stood near the door, phone pressed to one ear. "Yes, room 512, 5th floor, surgical recovery, evidence preservation. We need police response and hospital security lockdown." He paused, listening. "No, I am not exaggerating." The security guards turned at that. Admiral Whitaker looked up. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the room with the force of an order. "This floor is to be secured. Nobody removes anything from this room. Nobody clears a cart, empties a bin, deletes a camera file, or changes a shift record." One guard blinked. "Sir, I need authorization from administration." Whitaker held his stare. "Then get it while standing there." The guard reached for his radio. Nora looked at Marcia. "Where is Russell Vance?" Marcia swallowed. "Administrator on call. Yes, he's being contacted. He needs to be here." Marcia's eyes flicked to Lily, then back to the pillow. "I didn't know," she said. Nora heard the tremor beneath the words, not defense, fear. "I told you the pillows were disappearing. I thought administration wanted the situation contained. The situation was a patient being harmed." Marcia looked as if Nora had slapped her. For a moment, the years of authority drained out of her. She looked older, smaller, a woman standing in the wreckage of the kind of decision people make when they are tired and pressured and afraid of the wrong consequence. Then she stepped back into the hallway and raised her voice. All non-essential staff, stay at your stations. Nobody enters room 512 without clearance. Secure the utility room, linen closet, and service elevator. Nora watched her go. It was not forgiveness. It was movement. At 3:29 a.m., Mercyont Medical Center changed shape. The fifth-floor elevators stopped answering call buttons from below. The stairwell doors locked from the outside. Security posted one guard near the service elevator and another at the main nurses' station. Phones began ringing in short, nervous bursts. Staff moved quickly, but with the cautious precision of people who understood that ordinary routine had just become evidence. The torn pillow remained on the tray. Dr. Keller found sterile forceps and a specimen container, then stopped himself before touching anything. Nora saw his hand hovering. Wait for police. He nodded. Right. His face was pale. The physician in him wanted to act. The witness in him knew action could damage the record. Lily saw the conflict. Can it still hurt me from over there? Nora moved between Lily and the tray. No, not from there. You're sure? Yes. The answer came faster than Nora felt. Lily needed certainty, so Nora gave it cleanly. Admiral Whitaker leaned closer to his daughter. You do not have to look at it. Lily kept looking. I do. Her father said nothing. Nora understood. Lily had spent 10 nights being told the thing inside the room was not real. Now that it was visible, she needed to keep it in sight until the world admitted it existed. Russell Vance arrived at 3:38. He came fast, but tried to make it look measured, which only made the panic more obvious. He wore a navy suit jacket over a wrinkled dress shirt, no tie, and the expression of a man who had practiced crisis language for years, and had just discovered crisis did not care about language. He entered the room and stopped dead. His eyes took in the scene in pieces. Lily in bed, the Admiral beside her, Nora near the tray, Dr. Keller by the door, Marcia in the hallway, the split pillow, the pale filaments tangled in the white fill. Russell's mouth opened. No sound came out at first. Then he said, "Can someone explain what I'm looking at?" Nora stepped forward. Yes. She did not raise her voice. She did not accuse first. She gave him what the hospital had failed to give Lily, a clear record. She started with the first documented scream. She gave the dates, times, symptoms, skin findings, pillow replacements, psychiatric consult, language, missing pillows, Travis Rohr's linen rounds. The camera listed as malfunctioning the electrical tape over the indicator light. The second missing pillow, the call to Admiral Whitaker. Travis entering room 512 at 239 with a fresh pillowcase and the discovery inside the pillow. She spoke for nearly 10 minutes. No one interrupted. Not because they were polite, because each detail locked into the next one with a sound everyone in the room could hear. When she finished, Russell Vance looked at the notebook in her hand. You documented all of this? Yes. Officially, Nora held his eyes. I documented it accurately, his jaw tightened. That is not what I asked. No, Admiral Whitaker said, but it is the answer that matters. Russell turned toward him. Admiral, I want to assure you Mercy Point is taking this with the utmost seriousness. Whitaker stood slowly. The room seemed to shrink around him. My daughter reported pain for 10 nights. Your hospital called it anxiety while a staff member walked in and out of her room with access to her bed. Russell's face flushed. We are still establishing facts. Whitaker pointed toward the pillow without looking at it. There are your facts. A radio crackled in the hallway. One of the security guards leaned in. Charleston police just arrived. Detective Marcus Vale reached the room at 3:47 a.m. He was broad-shouldered, early 40s, wearing a rain-darkened jacket over plain clothes. His eyes moved quickly, but his voice did not. He had the composed alertness of someone who had learned that rooms tell the truth before people do. He looked once at Admiral Whitaker, not with awe, but recognition. Then he looked at Nora. You the nurse who found it? Nora answered. I cut it open. Vale nodded. Start there, Nora gave the account again. This time she handed him the notebook. He did not skim it. He read in silence, turning the pages with gloved hands. His expression changed only once when he reached the camera entry. He looked up. The tape is still there. Yes, show me. Nora walked him into the hallway. The camera sat above room 512, its indicator neatly covered by black electrical tape. Vale stared at it for a long second. Who reported the malfunction? Russell, standing behind them, answered too quickly. Maintenance would have that record. Vale turned to him. I did not ask who might have it. I asked who reported it. Russell looked to Marcia. Marcia's voice was low. I received a message that camera coverage outside room 512 was unreliable. I was told maintenance had been informed. From who? Marcia hesitated. Nora watched the hesitation and felt the room tilt again. Nora said. Marcia closed her eyes briefly. Diane Mercer. Russell's head turned sharply. Diane. Marcia looked at him. She said not to escalate the Whitaker situation unless there was a direct medical emergency. She said administration wanted it handled quietly. Detective Vale wrote the name down. Title Russell answered, Director of Patient Experience. Vale looked back at the camera. That is an interesting title. Inside room 512, Lily asked for water. Her voice was dry and scraped thin. Nora returned to the bedside, poured from the pitcher, and held the straw while Lily drank. Lily's hands shook around the cup. Are they going to take it seriously now? Nora glanced at Detective Vale, who was instructing a crime scene technician not to move the tray until photographs were complete. Yes. Lily looked toward the hallway. And him, Travis, is with security. Did he say anything? Nora hesitated. Lily noticed. I heard enough, Lily said. I'm not asking because I want to understand him. I'm asking because I want to know if he still thinks this was about my father. Nora sat on the edge of the chair. I think he wanted it to be. Lily looked at the torn pillow. It wasn't. No, it was about me every time he came through that door. Nora did not answer because Lily was not asking. Dr. Serena Park arrived at 4:16. She came from the Medical University Hospital across town, hair pulled back, coat buttoned, wrong medical bag in one hand. She moved into the room with a focus that made everyone else adjust around her. I'm the toxicologist, she said. Who is the patient? Lily gave a faint, exhausted laugh. I'm guessing me. Dr. Park stepped to the bedside and softened immediately. I'm sorry. I'm going to examine the marks and ask you some very specific questions. You can stop me at any time. Lily nodded. Dr. Park used a small lighted scope to examine the welts across Lily's neck and shoulder. She asked when the burning started each night, how long it lasted, whether Lily felt numbness, tingling, dizziness, chest tightness, blurred vision, confusion, weakness in her hands, trouble swallowing. Lily answered with surprising steadiness. Nora stood nearby, watching Dr. Park's face. The doctor did not look surprised. That worried Nora more than if she had. Finally, Dr. Park turned toward the tray. She did not touch the pillow. She leaned close enough to see the filaments and the barbed tips caught in the filling. Consistent with marine stinging structures, she said, possibly harvested from Portuguese man-of-war or related coastal material. The pneumatic cysts can remain reactive under certain conditions even after separation, especially if handled and packed to preserve moisture. Dr. Keller looked sick all over again, so her symptoms entirely plausible. Repeated contact to the same region could intensify the local reaction, burning pain, hypersensitivity, persistent inflammation. With repeated exposure, we start worrying about systemic allergic response, cardiac effects, neurological symptoms. Whitaker's hand tightened around the bed rail. How close, doctor? Park met his eyes close enough that I want her on IV antihistamines, now cardiac monitoring through the morning, and a full toxicology workup. Lily closed her eyes for a second. She looked relieved and devastated at once. They kept saying it was stress. Dr. Park's voice was gentle. Stress did not make those marks. No one spoke. Those 6 words did something no sedative had done. Lily's shoulders lowered barely, but enough for Nora to see. Detective Vale's phone rang at 4:29. He listened without speaking, then stepped into the hallway. Nora followed him with her eyes, but stayed with Lily. A minute later, Vale returned with a different expression. Not surprise, expansion. The case had grown. He looked at Russell Vance. I need your IT staff to pull badge access for the fifth floor linen closet, service elevators, and room 512 for every night since Miss Whittaker was admitted. Russell said, "That may take some time." Vale looked at him. "Then start now." At 452, a young IT technician named Ben Alvarez came up with a laptop balanced in both hands. He looked like he had been pulled from a basement server room into a nightmare and had not yet caught up. He opened the access logs at the nurse's station while Vale, Russell, Marcia, and Nora stood around him. Ben's fingers moved quickly. "Travis Roar's badge accessed fifth floor service elevator every night," he said. "Times match linen rounds." Vale nodded. "Room access." "Patient rooms don't require badge access unless locked, but supply rooms do." Ben scrolled. He accessed the linen supply room before and after the events. Nora watched the screen. A second name appeared several times. Same nights, earlier times between 11:05 and 11:32 p.m. Diane Mercer. Nora leaned closer. Why was Diane in the fifth floor supply room? Russell's face had gone gray. She would have no reason. Vale said, "Apparently she had one." Ben clicked another log. Her badge also accessed the administrative records office at 1:12 a.m. 2 nights ago. Russell said, "This is internal data. We need legal present before we interpret." Vale looked at him with calm contempt. "You can invite legal to interpret it from behind me." Marca rubbed both hands over her face. "She called me," she said. 6 days ago, she told me Lily's case was sensitive and any formal incident report would create unnecessary exposure. I thought she meant media exposure. I thought she meant the Admiral. Nora's voice was quiet. "You did not ask why she cared about a pillow." Marcia looked at her. "No." The word came out broken. Detective Vale turned to a security guard. "Find Diane Mercer." Russell said, "She is not scheduled overnight." Ben looked at the screen. Her badge accessed the second floor administrative suite at 11:44 p.m. It is not logged out, Vale said. Then she is in the building. Diane Mercer was found in her office 7 minutes later. Nora did not go with them, but she saw Diane when they brought her past the fifth floor waiting area. Diane was 53, polished even at that hour, with silver blonde hair tucked behind one ear and a camel coat over her arm. She had built a career out of smoothing complaints before they became records. Families knew her as the woman who apologized beautifully. Staff knew her as the woman who could make a problem vanish by calling it a communication issue. Now her hands were bare and trembling. Detective Vale walked beside her. She saw Nora near the nurse's station. For 1 second, their eyes met. Diane's expression was not guilt alone. It was resentment, fear, and the stunned offense of someone who had convinced herself she was managing damage and had just been forced to see the body under the word damage. In the small consultation room near the elevators, Diane asked for water, then did not drink it. Vale sat across from her. Russell stood by the wall with hospital counsel on speakerphone. Nora was not supposed to be in the room, but Vale had asked her to remain as a witness to prior reporting. Russell had objected. Vale had ignored him. Diane began with denial. "I had no knowledge of any physical harm." Vale placed the badge logs on the table. "You access the fifth floor supply room every night." "Lily Whittaker had an episode. I review patient environment concerns. At 11:18 at night, I work long hours." "You contacted Charge Nurse Bell and told her not to escalate the situation." "I told her to avoid unnecessary panic around a high-profile family." "You helped hire Travis Roar." Diane's mouth closed. Vale leaned back. "There it is." Diane looked at Russell. He looked away. Vale said, "Talk to me." Diane's hands folded together on the table. "I knew Travis before Mercy Point." "How, a support group? What kind of support group?" Her eyes lifted. "Families of service members lost in disputed military incidents." Nora felt the words move through the room. Diane continued each sentence, careful now, shaped for survival. "My brother died during a naval training accident in 2014. There were questions. The Navy closed ranks. Travis was in the group. He talked about his father constantly. He was angry, but everyone in that group was angry. You helped him get a job here. He needed work. You placed him on night shift. I recommended him for an opening on the fifth floor. I did not know Lily Whittaker would be admitted." But once she was Diane's eyes flickered, Vale waited. The silence did the work. Finally, she said, Travis told me he wanted to speak to Admiral Whitaker. That was all. Nora's voice came before she could stop it. In his daughter's hospital room at 3:00 in the morning, Diane looked at her. I did not know he was doing that at first. At first, Vale repeated. Diane swallowed. I found out after the third night. Russell shut his eyes. Vale's pen stopped moving. You knew a staff member had access to a patient he had targeted through her father, and you did not report it. I confronted him. Did you report it? He said it was over. Did you report it? No. Did you allow staff to continue believing Lily was suffering psychiatric episodes? Diane's face crumpled, then tightened again as pride tried to hold. I thought if it stopped, no one needed to know. Nora stared at her. It did not stop. I know that now. You knew it then. She screamed every night. Diane flinched. Vale said, why cover the camera? Diane looked down. I did not cover it. Who submitted the malfunction report? She did not answer. Vale waited. Her voice dropped. I did. The consultation room seemed smaller after that. Vale closed the folder. Diane Mercer, you are not free to leave. Back in room 512, Lily had been connected to the cardiac monitor and IV medication. The room looked more medical now, which made the horror feel both contained and more real. Dr. Park charted carefully. Dr. Keller stood by the window hollow-eyed. Admiral Whitaker remained at Lily's side as if leaving the chair would be an act of betrayal. Nora entered quietly. Lily looked at her face. There was someone else. Nora did not ask how she knew. Yes, who? Diane Mercer. Lily stared, the patient experience woman. Nora nodded. Lily gave a small, stunned laugh. She brought my mother tea. Whitaker's face darkened. She knew Nora sat beside the bed. She knew enough to stop it. She did not. Lily turned her head toward the window. Morning had begun to dilute the black outside into gray. For a long time she said nothing. Then she whispered, That feels worse. Whitaker leaned forward. Lily, he hated you, she said, still looking at the window. That does not make it right, but he came in already broken. She worked here. Her whole job was listening to patients. Nora felt those words settle into her chest. At 6:04 a.m., Russell Vance asked Nora to come to the third-floor conference room. She had been awake too long. Her legs felt filled with wet sand. Her scrub smelled faintly of antiseptic and fear. But she went. The room was windowless, bright, and designed for language that did not bleed. Around the table sat Russell, two hospital attorneys, Dr. Malcolm Reed, Dr. Keller, Marcia Bell, the head of risk management, and a board liaison appearing through a laptop screen. Russell began with a careful expression. Nurse Callahan, first I want to acknowledge your actions tonight. Your attention to detail and your commitment to patient safety were extraordinary. Nora stood at the end of the table. Do not make this about praise. The room froze. Russell blinked. I beg your pardon. This hospital had a patient with repeated physical symptoms, consistent timing, a repeated object of concern, missing evidence, and a compromised camera. She was labeled anxious because that explanation was easier to process. One attorney leaned forward. We need to be careful with characterizations. Nora looked at her. I have been careful for 3 nights. Lily was careful for 10. Careful did not protect her. Marcia lowered her eyes. Russell's voice tightened. There is an active criminal investigation. We cannot solve every institutional issue in this room at 6:00 in the morning. Nora nodded. Then solve the first one. And what is that? Give nurses a direct escalation path outside the chain of command when patient safety concerns are being suppressed. Risk management stopped writing. Nora continued. If a nurse believes a patient is being harmed and her supervisor refuses to act, there needs to be an independent review trigger, not a suggestion, not a courtesy email, a required response. The board liaison on the laptop shifted. That kind of protocol requires design. Then design it, Russell said. Nora, she looked at him. A patient screamed the truth inside this building for 10 nights. The system translated her pain into paperwork. I am not asking for a committee. I am telling you what failed. Doctor. Keller spoke from near the wall. She is right. Everyone turned. He looked exhausted, but his voice was steady. I examined Lily. I read the notes. I accepted the frame that was handed to me. Anxiety, stress, fixation. I did not ask why the object she identified kept disappearing. That is not only one person's failure. Dr. Reed looked down at the table. Marka raised her head. I was told to keep it quiet, she said. And I did. I should not have. The room changed then, not enough to repair anything. Enough to stop pretending there was only one criminal and one victim. Russell Vance rubbed both hands over his face. When he lowered them, he looked less polished. "All right," he said. The attorney beside him whispered, "Russell." He held up one hand. "No, we are past posture." He looked at Nora. "Put your recommendations in writing." Nora did not soften. "I want to be involved in building the protocol." Risk management said that is reasonable. Nora held her gaze. "It is necessary." No one argued. At 6:41 a.m., Nora returned to room 512. Lily was awake. Her father sat beside her, still holding her hand. The IV line ran clear into her arm. The monitor beeped steadily, an ordinary sound made precious by everything that had tried to interrupt it. Lily looked at Nora. "Are you in trouble?" Nora pulled the chair closer and sat. "Not today. That sounds temporary. Most things are." Lily almost smiled. Nora looked at the empty space where the pillow had been. Crime scene technicians had removed it in sealed evidence containers. The tray was gone. The bedding had been changed under police supervision. The room looked cleaner now, but not innocent. Lily followed her gaze. "I keep thinking I feel it." Nora nodded. "Your body learned the pattern. How do I unlearn it?" Nora looked at the gray morning light on the window. Slowly, with people who do not rush you, Lily closed her eyes. The door opened softly. Caroline Whitaker stepped in. She had been held downstairs during the lockdown until an officer brought her up. Her face was pale, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked at Lily, at the IV, at Grant, at Nora. Then she crossed the room and gathered her daughter as carefully as the wires allowed. Lily did not cry until her mother touched her. Then the sound came out small and young and exhausted. Caroline held her and looked over Lily's shoulder at Grant. "What happened to my child?" Grant's face broke quietly. "We did not listen fast enough." Caroline shut her eyes but kept holding Lily. Nora stood to give them space. As she reached the doorway, Lily's voice stopped her. "Nora." She turned. Lily wiped her face with the heel of one hand. "Thank you for cutting it open." Nora looked at the young woman in the bed. The Admiral beside her, the mother holding her, the morning pressing against the glass like the first witness of the day. "You told us where to look," Nora said. Then she stepped into the hall where the 5th floor of Mercy Point Medical Center kept moving around the sealed rooms, locked closets, guarded elevators, and the new knowledge that the worst thing hidden in a hospital was not always the thing inside a pillow. Sometimes it was the decision not to look. By 7 in the morning, the rain had stopped over Charleston. The city outside Mercy Point Medical Center looked almost gentle in the gray light, with wet streets shining under traffic signals and gulls cutting low across the harbor. People in business clothes hurried from parking garages with coffee in one hand and phones in the other. A man in a delivery uniform balanced a box of pastries against his hip. 2 medical students crossed the lobby laughing at something on a screen. From the outside, the hospital looked like it always had. Inside, the building had begun to come apart in quiet places. On the 5th floor, yellow evidence markers sat outside the linen closet. The service elevator remained locked. Security officers stood near the nurses' station speaking into radios with voices lowered out of habit. Though there was no longer any way to keep the night contained. Staff members moved past each other without small talk. Every glance carried the same question. How did this happen here? Lily Whitaker lay awake in room 512, watching morning gather at the edges of the window. Her mother sat on the side of the bed, one hand resting on Lily's ankle through the blanket. Admiral Grant Whitaker stood near the window with his phone in his hand, reading messages he did not answer. His face had changed since the night before. The command was still there, but it no longer sat cleanly on him. It had been bent by helplessness, by the sight of his daughter shaking beside a torn pillow, by the sound of her saying, "I told you," and realizing that the truth had been in the room long before he arrived. Nora stood near the sink, finishing a note in the temporary chart Detective Vale had permitted the medical team to use. The original records had been copied and locked. Every new entry was being time-stamped, witnessed, and reviewed. Doctor. Serena Park checked Lily's monitor, then adjusted the IV line with careful fingers. The medication is helping, she said. Lily nodded. The burning is lower. Good. Any chest tightness? Number dizziness? Only when I think too much. Dr. Park gave her a small, tired smile. That may be a reasonable response to an unreasonable night. Caroline looked up. How long does she need monitoring? Through the afternoon at least. I want serial exams. If her vitals stay steady and the inflammation continues to respond, we can discuss transfer to a private recovery room away from this floor. Grant turned from the window. Not on this floor. Dr. Park looked at him. No, not on this floor. Lily's eyes moved toward the empty space where the pillow had been. The bed had been remade. The sheets were clean. The pillow was gone, replaced by folded blankets stacked behind her shoulders after Lily refused another one, yet the room still seemed to remember. The air near the bed felt marked by what had been opened there. Caroline saw her daughter looking. We can ask them to move you now. I know, do you want that? Lily took a breath. Yes. Then she looked at Nora, but not because I'm running from it. Nora capped her pen. No one here thinks that. Lily's mouth tightened. People here thought a lot of things. No one corrected her. A sound rose from outside the door, not loud but different from hospital noise. Voices overlapped, hushed and urgent. Footsteps gathered, stopped, gathered again. Grant opened the door halfway. Detective Marcus Vale stood in the hall with Russell Vance, 2 security officers, and a woman from hospital communications, whose face looked too composed to be natural. Grant listened for 3 seconds. Then his voice sharpened. Reporters. Russell's eyes flicked toward room 512. Several outlets are downstairs. We are working to determine how the information left the building. Grant stepped into the hallway. Information left the building because a crime happened inside it. The communications woman spoke carefully. Admiral, we have to protect patient privacy. Grant looked at her as if she had used the wrong language in a foreign port. My daughter's privacy was not protected when staff discussed her supposed psychiatric condition in hallways. Russell's face tightened. Detective Vale raised one hand not to calm Grant, but to keep the conversation from wasting oxygen. No one speaks for Miss Whittaker without her consent. No one releases medical details. The criminal investigation is active. That is the statement. The woman nodded quickly. Grant returned to the room. Lily looked at him. How many 4 news vans downstairs? Caroline closed her eyes. Lily stared at the ceiling. So now everyone believes me. Grant sat beside her. Lily, it's strange, she said. Last night I couldn't get one room to believe me. Now strangers with cameras want the story. Her voice was flat, but her hand had curled into the blanket. Nora saw it. You do not owe anyone your face today. Lily looked at her. Do I owe them anything? Later. Nora did not answer quickly. Caroline said, you owe them nothing. Grant looked at his daughter for a long moment. Then he said, but if you choose to speak, they will hear you. Lily turned toward the window. She watched water drip from the outer ledge. I need them to hear the right thing. By 9:00, Travis Rohr had been transferred from hospital security custody to Charleston Police. He had asked for a lawyer and said little after that. In the first transport report, Detective Vale wrote that the suspect appeared calm, cooperative, and emotionally detached, except when questioned about Admiral Whittaker's past command. That phrase followed Travis into the interrogation room, emotionally detached. It was accurate only from the outside. Inside the small room downtown, Travis sat with both wrists cuffed to a metal ring on the table. His hair was damp from the rain. His gray Mercy Point uniform had been replaced by a paper evidence garment. Without the linen cart, without the badge, without the quiet purpose of his nightly route, he looked less like a threat and more like a man who had spent years becoming one. His attorney, a public's defender named Paul Renner, sat beside him with a legal pad. Detective Vale sat across from them. You understand the charges being considered? Renner answered first. My client understands he is being accused. Formal charges have not yet been filed. Vale looked at Travis. You put venomous marine material inside a hospital pillow and placed that pillow under Lily Whittaker's head. Renner said, Detective. Travis spoke without looking up. I replaced linens. Vale placed a photograph on the table. The split pillow, the pale filaments, the white filling, the time stamp. Travis stared at it. His jaw moved once. Vale placed another photograph beside it. Lily's neck. Red welts clustered beneath the hairline. Travis looked away. There, Vale said quietly, "That is the part your plan never figured out how to look at." Raynor leaned in. My client is invoking his right to remain silent. Travis kept his eyes on the wall. I wanted him to hear her. Vale did not move. Who? Whitaker. You wanted Admiral Whitaker to hear his daughter suffer. Travis's mouth tightened. He heard people suffer before. You were not hurting a report. You were hurting a woman in a hospital bed. Travis looked at the photograph of Lily's injuries again. For a second, the anger behind his face lost its shape. Then he closed down. Raynor placed one hand over the photograph and slid it back toward Vale. The interview is over. Across town, Diane Mercer sat in a separate interview room with a different attorney and a glass of water she had not touched. Her mascara had smudged beneath one eye. She had removed her coat, folded it neatly over the back of her chair, and smoothed the sleeves twice. Everything about her wanted order. There was none available. Detective Vale joined the second interview after leaving Travis. Diane looked up as he entered. "I did not put anything in that pillow," Noble said, sitting. "You helped create the space where he could." Her attorney objected. Vale let the words pass over him. Diane's voice came small. "He told me he only wanted to confront the Admiral at night on a surgical floor through his daughter's room. I believed I could manage it." Vale opened a folder. "You submitted a false camera malfunction report." "I was trying to prevent a scandal while I figured out what was happening. You knew after the third night." Diane closed her eyes. I suspected. Vale slid a printed nursing note across the table. "Lily's report. Burning pain. Pillow. Visible marks. Did you read this?" Diane opened her eyes. "Yes," he slid another note. "A second episode, more marks, and this? Yes. A third, yes." Vale's voice did not rise. At what point did suspicion become knowledge? Diane's lips parted. No answer came. The attorney touched her arm. Diane pulled away slightly. "I thought if I reported Travis, I would have to explain how he got hired. I would have to explain the group. I would have to explain the calls, the recommendation, the placement, everything." And Lily Diane's face tightened. I told myself she was not in real danger. Vale nodded once slowly. "People tell themselves many useful things." At Mercy Point, Lily was moved at 10:23 a.m. not by routine transport, by a small procession. 2 nurses, 1 security officer. Dr. Park, Caroline Grant, and Nora moved with her down the 5th-floor hallway. Lily sat in a wheelchair with a blanket around her shoulders and her hair loose against her neck. She did not want to be wheeled past the nurse's station, but there was no other route. Every conversation stopped. Some staff lowered their eyes. Others looked at her with grief, shame, or something that tried to be apology but lacked the courage of words. Lily kept her gaze forward. As they passed the linen closet, the sealed evidence tape caught the overhead light. Her fingers tightened around the blanket. Nora walked beside her. "Breathe in for 4. Lily obeyed, out for 6. The wheelchair rolled on. At the elevator, Marcia Bell stepped forward. Her face was bare of its usual authority. "Lily." Grant stiffened, but Lily raised one hand slightly. Marcia stopped a few feet away. I gave a full statement. I told Detective Vale everything Diane said to me and everything I failed to do. After Lily looked at her. Marcia swallowed. "I am sorry." The hallway held still. Lily's eyes moved over Marcia's face. "You told Nora to drop it." Marcia flinched. "Yes. Would you do that again?" "No." Lily nodded once. It was not forgiveness. It was receipt. The elevator doors opened. Nora stepped inside with her. The new room was on the 7th floor in a wing usually reserved for monitored recovery and protective isolation. It had larger windows, better light, and a view of the harbor. There was a bed, a recliner, a small couch, a monitor, and a closet that Nora checked herself before Lily was wheeled in. Lily watched her. "You don't have to do that." Nora opened the closet anyway. "Yes, I do." She checked the bathroom, the bedside, drawers under the bed behind the curtain, and the pillow storage shelf. Then she removed every pillow from the room and replaced them with folded blankets. Caroline's hand went to her mouth. Grant looked away. Lily's face did not change until Nora finished. Then she said, "Thank you." Nora nodded. That afternoon, Lily slept for 11 minutes. She woke with a strangled breath and both hands at her neck. Caroline was beside her instantly. "Nobody touched you. You're safe. You're safe." Lily blinked hard, trying to find the room. Nora stepped in from the doorway. "Look at me." Lily did. "Name 5 things you can see." Lily's breathing shook. "The window, the monitor, Mom's sweater, your badge, the chair. 4 things you can feel. The blanket, the tape on my arm, my hair, the bed rail. 3 things you hear." Lily listened. The monitor, the vent, Dad in the hallway. Grant appeared at the door as if summoned by guilt. "I'm here." Lily looked at him. "I know." He came in slowly, not like a commander entering a room, like a father asking permission from the air. The day thinned into evening. Outside the hospital, cameras remained. The official statement from Mercy Point used phrases like isolated criminal act, ongoing investigation, and full cooperation with authorities. Within an hour, a source leaked that a hospital administrator had been suspended. By dinner, national outlets had picked up the story. By midnight, Lily's name was everywhere. Grant wanted to fight every headline. Caroline wanted to turn off every screen. Lily asked Nora to read one article aloud, then stopped her after the first paragraph. "They keep calling me the Admiral's daughter." Nora lowered the phone. "You are, I know, but that's not all I am." "No." Lily looked toward the dark window where the room reflected faintly back at her. "For 10 nights, being his daughter made me a target. Now it's making me a headline." Grant, standing near the door, closed his eyes. "I am sorry." Lily turned toward him. "For what?" "For being the reason he found you." She studied him in the low light. "Dad, he found me because he chose to." Grant's throat moved, "and because my past had unfinished ghosts." "Then stop talking to me like I'm one of them." The words struck him hard. Caroline looked down. Lily's voice softened but did not weaken. "I'm here." Grant came to the bed and sat. "Yes," he said. "You are." He reached for her hand and waited this time. She gave it to him. 3 weeks later, Lily left Mercy Point through a side entrance before sunrise. Her discharge was not a celebration. There were no balloons, no cheerful photographs, no smiling hospital administrator offering closure. There was only cool morning air. Caroline holding a bag of medications and follow-up papers, Grant scanning the parking area out of habit, and Nora walking with Lily to the car. Lily moved slowly. The marks on her neck had faded from red to brown to faint pink, but she still wore her hair down. At the car, she turned to Nora. "I don't know what to say." Nora adjusted the strap of Lily's bag where it had slipped from her shoulder. "You do not have to say anything. That seems unfair. Most true things are." Lily looked at the hospital behind them. The glass reflected the dawn. It looked clean. It looked harmless. "I used to think hospitals were where people went when they needed someone to know what was wrong." Nora followed her gaze. "Sometimes they are." Lily looked back at her. "And when they're not," Nora did not give her comfort, dressed as certainty. "Then someone has to make a record." Lily nodded. Her eyes filled, but she did not cry. "Keep the notebook." Nora touched the pocket of her jacket. "I bought a new one." Lily almost smiled. "Of course you did." Caroline helped her into the car. Grant closed the door, then stood across from Nora in the quiet of the side drive. For a moment, the Admiral seemed to search for words that did not belong to speeches, commendations, or command reports. "I owe you my daughter." Nora shook her head. "No, Lily saved herself by telling the truth every night. I just stopped letting people walk past it." Grant looked toward the car. "She asked me to help change the hospital policy." "That sounds like her." "I intend to." Nora met his eyes. Intentions do not help patients unless they become procedure. For the first time, Grant gave her a small, tired smile. "You sound like someone I would have promoted. I sound like someone who has worked nights too long." He opened the car door and got in beside his daughter. The car pulled away. Nora stood there until it turned out of the lot. Then she went back inside for her shift. The investigations widened over the next 2 months. Mercy Point suspended 3 administrators, including Russell Vance, pending review, though he was later cleared of direct involvement, and disciplined for delayed escalation failures. Diane Mercer was charged with obstruction, reckless endangerment, conspiracy to conceal patient harm, and falsifying safety records. Travis Rohr faced aggravated assault, stalking, evidence tampering, and multiple counts connected to deliberate poisoning and patient abuse. The state health department opened a broader review. They found what Nora already suspected. Not another pillow, not another Travis, something quieter, a pattern of ignored complaints, patients whose families said something was wrong and were told to wait, nurses whose concerns were routed back through the same supervisors who dismissed them, incident reports downgraded to service complaints, psychiatric language used too quickly when symptoms were inconvenient, inconsistent, or hard to prove. One reopened case involved an elderly man whose medication had been dispensed at the wrong dose for 2 nights before a family member forced a review. Another involved a teenager who said a staff member entered her room after visiting hours only to be told she was confused from anesthesia. A camera later showed the door opening exactly when she said it had. None of them became headlines like Lily. That troubled her. During recovery, Lily started therapy twice a week. The first therapist was kind and careful with a plant on the window's sill and a white noise machine near the door. Lily sat on the couch with her shoulders tense and her hands folded. The therapist asked, "What feels hardest right now?" Lily looked at the decorative pillow beside her on the couch. The therapist noticed and moved it away without comment. Lily stared at the empty space it left, that she said, "Pillows, no." "The fact that you moved it without making me explain." The therapist waited. Lily's eyes filled. "I spent 10 nights explaining. Healing came in small, uneven pieces. At first, Lily slept sitting upright in her childhood bedroom with folded blankets behind her back. Caroline checked on her too often. Grant pretended not to, but Lily heard his footsteps outside her door at 2:00 in the morning, 3:00 in the morning, 4. One night she called out, "Come in, Dad." The door opened. Grant stood there in sweatpants and an old Navy shirt, looking guilty and exhausted. "I was getting water." "No, you weren't, no." He came in and sat in the chair by the window. They stayed quiet for a while. Then Lily said, "Tell me about Aaron Rohr." Grant looked at her. "Lily, I need him to be a person, not just the reason." Grant lowered his head. When he spoke, his voice was rough. He was loud, funny, too confident with engines, good and bad weather. "Men trusted him. I trusted him. Did you leave him?" Grant closed his eyes. "I made the call to pull back. That's not what I asked." He opened his eyes. "No, I did not leave him lightly, but I left him." Lily absorbed that. "Could you have saved him? I have spent 17 years asking that," and his voice nearly broke. "I do not know." Lily looked at her hands. "I hate that answer." "So do I," she nodded. For the first time, his pain did not erase hers, and hers did not require him to become a villain. They sat in the room with both truths breathing between them. 4 months after the arrest, Lily entered the Charleston County Courthouse through a private side entrance. She wore a navy dress with long sleeves and her hair pinned up for the first time since leaving the hospital. The faint scars at the base of her neck were visible if someone looked carefully. She wanted them visible. Caroline walked on one side of her. Grant walked on the other. Nora met them outside the courtroom wearing a dark blazer over a plain blouse. A nurse who looked uncomfortable away from fluorescent lights and polished floors. Lily saw her and stopped. "You came." Nora looked at the courtroom doors. "You're testifying. That's not an answer. It is mine." Lily smiled faintly. Inside, Travis Rohr sat at the defense table. He looked thinner. His hair had grown out. When Lily entered, his eyes lifted, then dropped. Diane Mercer sat at another table in a separate proceeding later that day. Lily did not look at her yet. The courtroom smelled of old wood paper and coffee. It was too quiet in the way official rooms become quiet when pain is scheduled. When Lily took the stand, her hands were steady. The prosecutor asked her to state her name. Lily Ann Whitaker. He asked why she had been admitted to Mercy Point. Appendectomy. He asked when the first incident occurred. Night 4. Her answers were clear, not cold, not rehearsed into emptiness. Clear. She described the movement beneath the pillow, the stinging, the burning, the marks, the way the pain lasted into the morning, the way staff changed their tone after the psychiatric consult, the way she began to doubt not what she felt, but whether anyone would ever let it matter. The prosecutor placed a sealed photograph on the display, the pillow. A few jurors looked away. Lily did not. He asked, "What did you feel when Nurse Callahan cut it open?" Lily took a breath. Relief, horror, anger. But mostly I remember thinking that the truth had been there the whole time. It had just needed someone else to see it before it counted. The courtroom stayed silent. The prosecutor nodded. No further questions. The defense attorney approached gently. "Miss Whitaker, you understand that Mr. Rohr was grieving the death of his father. Yes, you understand that grief can affect judgment. Yes, do you have sympathy for that grief?" Lily looked at Travis. He did not look back. "I have sympathy for the boy who lost his father." The attorney paused as if sensing the rest. Lily continued, "I do not have sympathy for the man who came into my hospital room while I slept." No one moved. Months later, Travis Rohr accepted a plea after the evidence became impossible to fight. He was sentenced to 14 years in state prison. At sentencing, he made a statement about his father, about unanswered questions, about the Navy, about families abandoned by institutions that protected themselves. Then he looked at Lily. "I did not mean to destroy you." Lily stood beside the prosecutor's table. Her voice was steady. "You do not get credit for failing." Diane Mercer's case ended differently. She did not go to prison for as long, but she lost the life she had built around being trusted. Her license for hospital administration was revoked. She pleaded guilty to falsifying safety records and concealing known risk to a patient. At her hearing, she cried when she said she had convinced herself silence was temporary. Lily watched from the back row. Nora sat beside her. Diane said, "I thought I could contain it." Lily whispered. That was the problem. By winter, Mercy Point had a new policy. It did not have Nora's name on it, though several staff members called it Callahan's Rule when no administrators were nearby. The official name was the Independent Patient Safety Escalation Protocol. It allowed any nurse, physician, patient, or family member to trigger an outside safety review when repeated concerns were dismissed or rooted back through compromised leadership. Nora helped write it in a conference room that still smelled like burnt coffee and legal fear. She argued over every word. When an attorney suggested replacing mandatory review with recommended review, Nora looked at him until he changed it back. When a board member asked whether the process might create too many false alarms, Nora said, "Good. False alarms are what safety sounds like before disaster." Russell Vance, who had returned under strict oversight, wrote that down. Nora noticed. She did not smile. One night in February, long after the headlines had thinned and the cameras found other tragedies, Nora was working the 5th floor again, not room 512. That room had been renovated, then quietly roombered after too many staff refused to say its old number without lowering their voices. The hallway looked the same. Polished floors, low lights, carts tucked against walls, monitors pulsing behind closed doors. At 2:13 a.m., an elderly patient in room 518 pressed his call button. A young nurse named Mia answered. Nora watched from the station while finishing a chart. Mia stepped into the room, then came back out holding a small medication cup. Nora looked up. "What's wrong?" Mia lowered her voice. "Mr. Hanley says his pill tastes different from yesterday. The old rhythm of the hospital tried to fill the space. Patients get confused. Medications change. People worry at night." Mia looked down at the cup. "I checked the order once." Nora said nothing. She only stood. Mia looked at her, then back at the medication. "I'm going to check pharmacy before I give it." Nora nodded. Mia called 5 minutes later. The pharmacy confirmed the pill had been pulled from the wrong drawer after a packaging change. Same color, different dose. Mia stood at the station with the phone in her hand, face pale. "I almost gave it, but you didn't. He said it tasted different." Nora looked down the hall toward room 518. "And you listened." Mia swallowed. Because of Lily, Nora picked up her pen. Because of Mr. Hanley. Mia nodded slowly, understanding the difference. Near the end of her shift, Nora stepped outside to the staff balcony where smoking had been banned years earlier, but tired nurses still went to breathe. The harbor was black beyond the hospital lights. The air smelled of salt and cold metal. Her phone buzzed, a message from Lily. It was a photograph, a simple bed in a small apartment. A blue blanket, a lamp, a book face down on the nightstand, and one pillow. Nora stared at the image for a long time. Then another message appeared, slept 2 hours. Woke up scared, stayed anyway. Nora typed back, that counts. A minute passed. Lily replied, I know. Nora put the phone in her pocket. Behind her, the hospital doors opened and closed as the night shift moved through its tired rituals. Somewhere inside, a patient coughed. A monitor chimed. A nurse asked a question twice because the first answer did not feel right. Nora took out her new notebook. The cover was already worn at the edges. On the first page in black ink, she had written 3 words, listen before explaining. She turned to a fresh page and wrote the date. Then she went back inside.